What is up, y'all? Odeed here once again, aka Big Jake, and today I have a very, very special video for y'all. So I got my hands on a Snake River Farms Gold Wagyu Brisket. Basically what this means is Snake River Farms does Wagyu style American beef, which is kind of like American Kobe beef. And they have two different grading systems right now that you can buy. You can either get the black or the gold, and this is actually the gold, i.e. the top of the line Wagyu Snake River Farms beef that you can get your hands on right now. So let's go ahead and get it out of the packaging. We'll get it all cleaned up and see what it looks like. All right, y'all, check this thing out. I got it out of the bag and basically cleaned up all the purge, or the majority of the purge that I could get off of it, which is very important. Make sure you kind of wipe it all down. But look at the color of this thing. Very nice deep red color. You see a lot of the striations here of fat. Now we're gonna trim it up, and there are loads of brisket trimming videos on YouTube, so I'm not gonna go too in depth as I don't wanna make this video too long. But basically, real quickly, I'll tell you some of the things I'm gonna do. I'm gonna remove some of this fat here on the top, some of the silver skin. There's always like this side of kind of like grayish fat over here. I'll take this off, and then I'm gonna get a lot of this kind of fat here in between the point and the flat and kind of get rid of it. Then here on the back side, I'll probably trim most of this down to about 1/4 of an inch. Also, one thing to note is I can see which way my grain is running here. That's very important. That way when you slice this, you can slice this way against the grain. So yeah, other than that, I think we're gonna kind of give it a trim, and then I will come back and you guys can check it out and see what it looks like before I put the rub on it. All right, y'all, I got the brisket nice and trimmed up, and as I figured, there was a lot of fat on this thing. I got most of the silver skin and fat off here on the top of the flat. Then what I like to do here where the flat and the point kind of meet together is all this hard fat that's kind of underneath here. I usually get rid of the majority of that. I don't actually separate my flat and my point as some people do, but I will get rid of a lot of that just kind of hard fat that's not gonna render out. Then here on the back, I kind of tried to just like streamline this as best as I could and kind of get it all even out. This side over here was a lot thinner than this side. So yeah, I kind of hacked away at this a little bit, hacked away a little bit too much on this end. And basically, like I said, once again, just try to kind of get it streamlined. That way it kind of sat nice and flat on my smoker when I put it on there. I am gonna cook it fat side down. Also, let me mention that this brisket was originally 20 pounds, and I did cut quite a bit of the fat off, and I'd say it's probably somewhere around 16 to 17 pounds at this point. All right, next step, let's get to seasoning this thing. And basically, because it is such a high grade or high quality piece of beef, I don't really see any need for any injection or super fancy kind of rub. We're basically gonna go Central Texas style with this and use a rub of mostly salt and mostly pepper. I'm gonna start with the back, and one thing to note is on the shaker that you're using, make sure you have nice big holes in the shaker. That way when you're using the coarse pepper, which is what you probably should use in this case, is coarse pepper, that coarse pepper can get out and you don't end up with just salt all in your brisket. You just want to be very liberal but as even as you possibly can. You can kind of pat it in. And this side obviously is the fat side, so the seasoning of it isn't quite as important, but I like to put it on anyways. Make sure you get the ends. Obviously, this is the important side. By the way, I used a little bit more than just salt and pepper in my personal rub. There's a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder, some paprika, and some chili powder, but not very much. Try and get all the little crevices if you can. So yeah, this is what it looks like, just a nice liberal coat of seasoning. We're gonna put it in the refrigerator, probably wrapped in foil. It is now 2 p.m. and I'm gonna put it on the smoker tomorrow at about 9 or 10 a.m. So we'll give it some nice time to sit in the fridge and kind of incorporate all those seasonings in there, and then we'll put it on the smoker tomorrow. All right, y'all, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning on the next day, and the brisket has been in the fridge overnight. We got the Lang fired up. It is sitting right about 290. On the thermometer here, which means we're probably right about 280 at the grate. We're gonna cook a little hot, a little fast. That's how I like to go on my Lang. So we're gonna unwrap this thing. We're gonna take my ThermoWorks smoke and we're gonna put the probe for it in the thickest part of the flat. And then we're gonna let this cook to an internal temperature of 160. I'm not gonna open the lid. I'm not gonna spritz. I'm not gonna do any of that. I think this stuff has enough fat in it. As the fat renders off out of those striations in the meat, that it should base itself and keep it nice and moist. All right, y'all, we are back, and this brisket is cooking rather quickly. My buddy Brandon, who I got this Snake River Farms brisket from, by the way, shouts out to you, sir. He told me these Snake River Farms briskets do cook very fast, and he was right. So it's 11:30 now. I put it on at 8 o'clock. It's already at 160. I don't think I'm quite ready to wrap it yet because I don't want to take it off the smoker and let it rest until about at least 2 o'clock. Because I have guests coming over at 6. So what I did is I backed the temp off just a little bit. Initially I was running about 290, now I'm down to about 275. I'm just gonna let it roll. I don't really feel like you need to wrap a brisket. You'll get a little bit more bark on it if you don't, but I think that's okay. So for now, I'm gonna let it ride just like this, and then about 2 o'clock, somewhere around there, maybe even 1 o'clock, I'll see what the internal temp of it is then, and I may wrap, or I may just ride this thing all the way through to the end without any wrap. But for now, let's take a look and see what it looks like. Oh yeah, take a look at that. Fat is rendering off nicely. You can hear it. It's got a nice color on it. So yeah, we're just gonna let this thing ride for now and see where we're at in a couple more hours. All right, y'all, we are back and another hour and a half in, so it is now 1 o'clock, and we have basically hit a stall with the brisket. In fact, 11:30 it was at 160 degrees internal. Now it's 1 o'clock and it's only at 164, so it's slowly climbing in temperature. And I want to get this done somewhere between 2 and 5 o'clock. So what we're going to do now is we're going to wrap it. And the way that I like to wrap my briskets is I get a foil pan, or in this case I have two because it's such a heavy brisket. I will put the brisket inside of the foil pan, put foil on top of it, and then put it back into the smoker. The reason why I like to do that is once it's done resting, I can get all of the rendered fat out of the pan, put it in my grease separator, and then get that au jus out of the grease separator and dip my slices in it before I serve it. Now, what internal temp am I going to take it up to? You're probably wondering. Well, I was talking to my buddy Brandon, the one who I got the brisket from. He told me on these gold Wagyus from Snake River Farms, you got to take them up to a little bit of a higher temp to get them nice and tender. So I'm going to start checking it around 210 for tenderness and see where it's at. We'll kind of go from there. So anyways, let's crack open the leg and see what it looks like. Oh yeah, little bit deeper mahogany color than we had an hour and a half ago. It looks really nice. So yeah, let's go ahead and throw this into the foil pans and put it back in and take it up to 210 and see what it looks like then. All right, y'all, 7.5 hours in, and we are now approaching 210 degrees internal on the brisket. So let's go ahead and open up the lang and start probing it for tenderness. Oh, yeah, it's looking very nice, very nice. Oh yeah, that is very tender. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and call that done. It is super tender, kind of like room temperature peanut butter if you were pressing into that. So this thing is ready to go. Let's take it inside and we will wrap it in a towel and basically let it sit for about 2.5 hours. All right, y'all, real quick, just a quick recap. 7.5 hours on the smoker. So yeah, it's resting here, sitting on the counter in the foil pans, foil on top, wrapped in 2 towels. And I actually left the probe in it just to do an interesting experiment and see what temperature kind of fluctuations I get with it just sitting here on the counter. So in 2 hours while it rests, we'll see where the temp is. When we get down there right now, it is 3:45, so by about 6 o'clock or so, 5:45, 6, I'll start cutting into it and we'll see what the temp is then just for fun. I'm gonna have people over, so I'm not gonna be able to do any more recaps or anything like that, but I'll take as much video as I possibly can. My name is Odeed, thanks for watching, and I'm sure that this Wagyu brisket, gold Wagyu brisket from Snake River Farms is gonna be delicious. Peace.